feel like it's a gold rush right now. The barrier of entry is getting lower and lower, right? We used to talk about script kiddies, like you might as well toss that term out the window because now you have AI kiddies, right? No one wants to hear that the robots are coming to take their jobs. I feel like AI, even though it's getting a lot better, it still isn't all the way there. But what I will say on the other side of that is that we as a society are going to start losing skills at a very rapid rate because of AI. Folks don't necessarily need to halt everything and all of a sudden start learning AI. But I think the folks that even just use AI 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, just a little bit, just to kind of stay fresh, I think that it's going to pay dividends in the end.
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. There's been someone that Hacker Valley's been missing for a long time. You know him by face, you know him by name because he's got the golden voice, but he is Hacker Valley family. He's someone that actually helped ideate and come up with the idea of Hacker Valley Media. We would not be here without our very special guest for this episode, Chris Cochran, who is the CEO and founder of Commandant, also senior advisor at SANS. Chris, I know you've been everywhere over the past 2 years, but welcome back to your own show.
Glad to be back.
I mean, we've done other virtual sessions, but when I was planning out the episode and talking to the team, they were like, how dare you, Ron? It's been way too long since Chris has been on. You know, we keep in touch. I know what you've been working on, but for all of the people that haven't been able to hear you on the Hacker Valley Studio podcast, share what you've been up to.
Yeah, been up to a bunch of stuff. Most importantly, Commandant AI. It's my company. We're going through a bit of a growth stage, fundraising, doing all that fun stuff. But Commandant, we're focused on augmenting security operators with AI, agentic workflows, and all of that in between. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I feel like the technology is finally in a place where we can start augmenting security operators and making things faster, easier, and more efficient. And yeah, I got a super fire team that's helping me build this thing. And yeah, we'll be off to the races.
I love it. I love it so much. And I love it so much because I remember 2023, the start of it, we were doing episodes about ChatGPT. And I remember some people saying, wow, I don't think that you can make content just off of large language models. But not only can you do that, but you can build companies off of things like large language models because you have the knowledge, the tradecraft, and then you have the help of an LLM. I feel like there's really few things that we don't know what we can or can't do yet.
Oh yeah, we're at the very, very early stages of what we're going to be able to do with AI, LLMs, MCP, A2A, like all these components of technology are really going to just shoot things off into the stratosphere. I mean, we're seeing things change very rapidly right now, and it's only going to get faster, more outlandish, more creative. And I mean, I'm ready for the ride. I feel like it's a gold rush right now.
It 100% is. And it's the water is warm. It's good. There's investors out there that are looking for companies that are focused on cybersecurity and AI. So I think that you're in just the right place at the right time.
I think so too. I'm a fan of industry. And when I say industry, I don't know if you ever watched that special, The Men That Build America. It was very early stage United States of America, like Vanderbilt, Carnegie, you got Rockefeller and all that stuff. And then you go to the .com era, and you got the early folks, you got the Bezos, you got the Gates, you got Steve Jobs. And then now it's I was like, man, I've been waiting for the era in which I can really start to operate and build something. And I feel like this is it.
Yeah, I feel like you've always had a programming mind, and I think LLMs really have unlocked it for myself. I can imagine the same for you. I'm sure you've been developing up the idea even before you had the team.
Yeah. So what's funny is, We had been talking about, leveraging co-pilots for coding for a while. And then, a buddy of ours, Rob Lee, he was showing me what he was doing. He was doing it for some building of like curriculum and stuff like that. And I'm like, let me go ahead and see, what I can do from an application perspective. And I remember it took me 4 hours to probably build my first like little measly co-pilot. And I remember walking in to my wife and I was showing her what I was doing. I was like, they messed up giving me access to this because now all the ideas just started flowing. And that very night, obviously I had an idea of augmenting incident responders and incident commanders for a long time. But now it's like everything kind of locked into place. And so, yeah, now the floodgates are open.
The floodgates are open. And so much so, people may not realize how wide the floodgates are open. So I wanted to bring open an article that really helps paint the picture. So this article is by Wired. Is titled The Rise of the Vibe Hacker, and it's the AI's next nightmare. So this article goes into detail about how one of the top leaders on HackerOne, which is a bug bounty platform, is an automated AI bot. It's by this company called XBOW, XBOW. And I was shocked, but I also wasn't surprised. So, like, I was surprised, but not, because of course, who wouldn't try to, use vibe coding, methodologies like that to build exploits. So I think what you're doing is actually right on the same path, but with incident response. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the Expo guy is super brilliant. The founder actually created the GitHub Copilot, and so
Right.
they're on the leaderboard, which is fantastic. Really, really smart guys, awesome team, and incredible support from their investors. But when you think about it, when I talk to people about AI, I look at it from a couple perspectives because I go around traveling the country doing these dinners with SANS, and you'd be surprised at how nascent AI is, even for cybersecurity practitioners and cybersecurity programs. They're like, oh, we're thinking about testing out and trying out. It's like, wow, it's like very, very early on. And when you think about the folks that are leveraging AI for the good uses, there's some threats there and there's some risks there. But there's also risk coming from folks that are leveraging AI against organizations. And I think it's only going to get more incessant. The barrier of entry is getting lower and lower, right? We used to talk about script kiddies. Like, you might as well toss that term out the window because now you have AI kiddies, right? You got folks that can leverage AI. And now all of a sudden, they're like a senior pen tester level all of a sudden, just because they have that AI in their back pocket.
You've always been someone that has looked at aptitude, someone's ability to learn new things rather than what they currently know. And looking at this article, I think it's genius. I think it's genius that, a group of people have come together and, if this person created GitHub Copilot, a big shout out to them because that was my entry into vibe coding. But it's brilliant because this creates a opportunity for people to dip into other industries. Like, if I'm not the best at security, but I know so much about using AI to generate helpful information, then I can flow into the security world. I can flow into any other industry, as long as I have the right network, of course. But it gives me a lot more versatility in my career.
Yeah, it gives you versatility. And the one thing that I'd echo for folks out there is that all of these technologies are so new. If someone's like, oh, you're not the expert in X, Y, and Z, like, nobody is. Like, I mean, a lot of this technology just came about, by the end of last year, right? If you're talking about like MCP, A2A, and all that stuff, all this stuff is like completely cutting edge. And so I think folks start to downplay themselves and say like, oh, well, I'm not an AI expert. Well, you can be. If you start right now and you just work towards it every day, you'll start to get there. But to your point about being able to pivot into different arenas, I mean, if you have the right tools, like if you have like a Lovable, Riplet, you got Cursor, you got Claude, like if you pull all these things together, you can pull a company, you could pull a website, you could pull a community together overnight if you wanted to. And I mean, it could be anything. Like if you have just a little bit of knowledge or understanding about something and you leverage AI to start to, piece that stuff together. I mean, it's so easy to stand things up today.
So looking at all of the different opportunity, what made you choose incident response? Because you also have a strong background and history in threat intelligence.
True. Very, very true. So one of the things that I was picking up on, there's a lot of focus on the AI SOC, right? And I think the way some folks are looking at it, I think they're a little misguided. When you look at a lot of the folks that are talking about AI SOC, some of these folks are talking about replacing security operators or talking about, hey, now you don't need to hire this person or that person. I think that's a mistake from two perspectives. From one perspective, I think it's a mistake from a marketing and messaging. No one wants to hear that the robots are coming to take their jobs. But then number two, I feel like AI, even though it's getting a lot better, it still isn't all the way there. There's still a lot of hallucinations. There's still a lot of attack surface. Oh, by the way, congratulations on getting the book printed. I saw that today.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
But yeah, all that stuff is still being developed. And so I feel like instead of going where everyone else is going in the investigative portion of it, I have a really clear understanding, and the highest leverage thing I can augment right now is incident response, because a lot of folks don't have a lot of incident response experience. It's still something that is sort of like a shared duty where you're not getting those reps in constantly. But now we're building something that is going to be able to augment those folks to put incident response on rails so they could do it faster, more efficiently, more confidently.
Yeah. And without all of the heartache, we've worked together on incident response teams. And as an incident responder that worked for you specifically, one of the things I had a hard time doing was getting that final closure on my cases. Like I would pull in all the information and, be like, okay, great. Now it's time to make a decision. And it does take time to make a decision. I think having some type of assistance, whether it's reminders to the team to push certain elements forward, or reminder to the SOC lead or the incident commander to push things forward, is going to be infinitely helpful. It's at least shrink the time to close and also time to give back helpful investigative information.
100%. Yeah. I mean, the longer an incident goes on, the more expensive it is, and more in more ways than some folks would think. From the perspective of like the longer an attacker is in your environment, the more expensive it is because they're continuing to do additional damage. The longer it's going on in the press, if it's even that big, that's more reputational damage. But then also the cost of actually having the folks on in the war room that are operating, right? If you have like a sub one situation going on, you probably have a lawyer in there. You probably have a comms. You probably have most of the executive suite. You probably have engineers and operators. I mean, each hour that you're spending doing this incident response is expensive. Like, think about it from the hourly rate. And so being able to close incidents faster is only going to save money and heartache, like you're saying.
Yeah. And, let's talk about the future of cybersecurity. There's so many different things and categories emerging. I just wrote the book on attack surface management. I appreciate that shout out. But now there's new categories like continuous threat exposure management. And I'm sure with being in the incident response space, people are going to try to start pulling you into this new category called cybersecurity mesh architecture, CMA for short. But there's all these different things that are popping up. What's your magical crystal ball saying about where we're headed and where we're going to land?
Yeah, I would say where we're headed as a community, I don't think anybody can really tell. I think things from a cybersecurity perspective are in a super dynamic space, but even on a grander scale, I would say society is in a really dynamic place. I feel like cybersecurity is a space where in 2 months, the entire game can be completely changed. So when I think about the future, when I think about how things are going to operate, I mean, it's anybody's best guess. I think the folks that are going to do the best are the folks that are riding the wave now. I think the folks that are just behind the wave are going to be in a pretty bad spot. And the folks that aren't even in the water, they're going to get completely blown out of the water. No pun intended. So I feel like everything's going to change very, very rapidly. And it's, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go, honestly.
There's been a lot of talk about how AI can't take or replace cybersecurity jobs. But I think that what some people may not realize is how repetitive some jobs are in the space. There's been times where I've worked with SOC teams, and part of the tier one analyst's job is to copy and paste results from one tool into Virus Total, and then take that result from Virus Total and then paste that into Jira. And, like, maybe you're not going to replace all the thinking that that person can do, but the copying and pasting and data entry, those things are definitely going to go away or get drastically reduced.
Yeah, who wants to get paid to copy and paste things anyways? I mean, shout out to the folks that do that. You're making an honest living. But, for the folks that want to continue to do things that only humans can do, you kind of have to start to think about work differently, right? Why do all the math by hand when you got a calculator sitting right next to you? So it's like, use all the efficiencies you can from an AI perspective to help you do your job more efficiently, so you can do the more fun and interesting things that we are paid to do as cybersecurity practitioners.
Yeah. And I think that calculator one is a great example. When my parents would tell me to learn how to do, the math problem, I don't think I was really picking up what they were saying. I think that what they were really implying was understand the formulas. You might not understand all of the history and backstory as to why this formula works this way, but at least you can communicate that formula. You can pass this specific formula and equation onto someone else, and they could use it and apply it towards what they're doing. And I look at cybersecurity as the exact same thing, where it's important for us to have a base level on the fundamentals, but I think that's where it starts and stops. Like, know what it generally does, like, especially for computer networking. Like, that's typically where a lot of cybersecurity practitioners start, but they might not remember how to subnet, but they know that subnetting is a component to splitting up an IP address range. So I look at it like that, like, knowing all of these bits and bytes about cybersecurity is helpful, but now that we have so many different resources, it might not be mandatory.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, why do you use Python? Why don't you use hexadecimal to be able to code, or even, go further back and go on the binary? Yeah, same exact thing. Is technology is enabling you to do more and more and more. But what I will say on the other side of that is that we as a society are going to start losing skills at a very rapid rate because of AI. And so you have to almost like have this balance of, what do I need to understand completely as an individual or as an employee or cybersecurity practitioner? And then what can I completely outsource to AI? Like, for instance, we talk about kids today. So my daughter, she just, had to do a paper. She just finished her junior year of high school. And she gave me her paper that she wrote, and I'm reading it, and I was like, you don't even know half these words. Like, this doesn't sound like you at all. I know you used AI to do this, but now it's like, what are they going to be missing because of the experience has changed of writing a paper, right? Being able to write a paper, you have to do your own research. You have to look for sources. You have to verify those sources. You have to piece together a story in a way that makes sense and has to make logical sense. You have to, present your arguments. Here's your proof that this is the thing. And when you write a paper, that means that your mind had worked through all of these different factors. And then you got to a place where you said, okay, here's what I think about this particular topic. But if you were to ask her today, like, hey, what was that paper about? What did you learn? She'd be like, I don't really remember, because she didn't actually do the work. Same thing with a business plan. Mm-hmm. GPT can spin up a business plan, no problem. But it would be better off for someone to actually go through the steps of formulating that business plan. Okay, who are the who's going to be the customer? Like, what are the problems that they have? And what is the space look like today? Who are the competitors? Because now you're shortcutting a lot of this stuff that's actually really, really important. The output isn't nearly as important as the process in some instances.
That is interesting. I was speaking to one of my neighbors the other week, and they mentioned something similar, but flipped on his head. And they reference autocorrect and spelling, like especially in text messages. Like the older generation, when millennials and Gen Z were, getting adopted to these tools like Grammarly, they were saying, "Oh my gosh, kids and whatnot are gonna really suffer because they're not gonna know how to spell and do proper grammar." But it gives them a leg up in communication. At least everyone can understand what their message is, even if they didn't know how to spell every single word. But at the same time, you got to know what those words mean, like you're mentioning with your daughter. I look at the line kind of getting blurred as to what I should be doing as a human and then what the AI should be doing on behalf of me being a human.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But here's the other thing I would say. Imagine if you're working with somebody and they have great communication, everything's going fantastic. They could, they have the most thoughtful and eloquent writing you've ever seen, and all of a sudden the network goes down. And for some odd reason, you need somebody to present on this thing immediately, and you get them in front of the entire group. Like, all right, go ahead, tell them what you usually say, and they're just like, so the blue screen, they won't be able to do it. Though, but I mean, is that a far-fetched example? For sure. But that does illustrate the fact that there are going to be certain skills that are going to be seemingly conveyed to somebody that someone actually doesn't have.
What is crazy about this topic and the world that we're moving into is the assistant for interviewing. And, I think that this still is in alignment with the situation that your daughter may have been in using the AI. And, maybe she was, maybe not. But I interviewed my first person who I believe was using AI to answer questions.
Yep.
And it was almost like taking a deep fake phone call where there was a little bit of latency where I would ask them a question, they would look down to the left and then answer the question. And I was like, okay. What's going on? Like, is there something on your screen? Am I on the bottom left corner? And the fact that they were using or may have been using AI was a complete distraction for me, like the audience. And I would imagine it'd be the same for someone that is doing a security related activity, gets put on the spot, but they don't have their AI. I think that is definitely going to be one of the Achilles heels that we find ourselves in as a industry, is like not getting overly attached to where we could still, speak to our job and what we do in an intelligent manner.
Yeah, I mean, but imagine if you went to a doctor's appointment and you're like, "Oh, doc, I got all these issues," and they're like, it looks like you have this syndrome," and they're basing it off of like something that they got from AI, right? It's like, aren't you supposed to be the expert? Like, why are you leveraging something else, right? Because like at the end of the day, we pay people to do things, and AI is the tool that they use to help do that. But if the AI is doing everything, I think there's something that's lost there.
Yeah, there has to be an operator for it to warrant paying somebody. And I think that is the dicey part of what roles in cyber, or what even activities in cyber, do you need an operator for? I think that at first I thought that you needed an operator to block threats. But now I'm starting to open up my mind and say, maybe I don't, assuming that certain other things were to happen. And, sometimes I think that a human should be the one writing your security policy. But what if they don't have access to all of the information that the LLM has? Then are they really the most qualified? I think that for me, at least, if I were jumping into the space now and my mind was tainted with all the things that you could do with AI, I might be a little bit more hesitant to jump into a job and feel like I'm providing value.
Yeah, I think the way to look at it is leveraging AI to either fill gaps or to make things more efficient, rather than this AI is going to completely either replace me or completely augment me to the point where I am almost irrelevant. So, for example, if you look at, let's take cybersecurity, and we've had this argument for years at this point. Whether you could completely augment or
Yeah.
completely replace and automate security operations. And I still don't think you can, because there's still so much nuance to the cybersecurity arena, to businesses in general. What is right for one business might not be right for another. What's right for one situation might be not right for another. So if you have an AI that's blocking, let's say, IP addresses, and let's say for some odd reason that IP address not only seems to be sending malicious payloads, or maybe it's some kind of malicious traffic, but it also happens to be the one IP address that we use for the Christmas season, right? Because, hey, we have this particular IP that's hard coded. We're getting some malware that's coming in. So they're leveraging it for, I don't know, crypto mining. But also, this is the main IP that we're using to get out to the internet during our busiest time of the season. Would you want the AI to completely shut that down to keep them from crypto mining, or would you want to allow them to continue crypto mining as long as you continue to operate, right? So is the AI going to be able to make that decision? I don't think so.
Probably not. Yeah, I think that we need to build much more context when it comes to using AI in a more of an agentic way. But, I also wonder, for those that are Terminator fans out there or sci-fi fans, this is essentially Skynet at the end of the day. Like, we are wanting AI to give us information back and tell us what to do, and then we're going to go do it. I think I see, when I go on LinkedIn, I'm looking at posts, I see some of this AI generated posts. One of the biggest takeaways for me to see if an AI wrote it is the double dash. Like, it combines two dashes into one. When I see that, I'm like, I don't know how to even make that character on my keyboard. So
yeah, exactly. And a lot of people don't realize that's a dead giveaway, right? There's certain words, there's the super long dash. I mean, all that stuff is a dead giveaway. And what gets me is when there's like such a heartfelt like email that I receive and I see that double dash, I'm just like, nice try, y'all.
So what advice would you have for someone that's looking to go down the path of incorporating AI in their security workflows or AI in their security profession? How would you go about it if you were to start today?
Yeah, how I would go about it today is, number one, get involved with the folks that are doing some of the stuff as it stands today. Some of the folks that are on the cutting edge, they're leveraging tools. I think tools is one of the easiest ways to kind of get started. You don't necessarily have to go so in depth on the technologies, how they work, how does agentic AI work, how does an AI workflow work. You don't necessarily have to do that. I think that is like a superpower, very similar to coding. Do you have to know how to code to do some things in cybersecurity? No, but it would be a superpower if you did. But in terms of operations, I would start to just test tools, just try things out, see what are the different capabilities, what are the different things that you could leverage to do some of your work. Of course, you're going to have to do your due diligence, do some third-party risk analysis to make sure it's something that you want to be leveraging for work anyways. I'm sure you're going to have to talk to your organization, but just start to dabble in all these different things, because I feel like folks don't necessarily need to like halt everything and all of a sudden start learning AI. But I think the folks that even just use AI 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, just a little bit, just to kind of stay fresh, I think that it's going to pay dividends in the end.
It will. It has to, especially if you take that curious approach and just, start experimenting with something. One of my first use cases was email. I took my email, I ran it through Llama, and I loved the results. I got instant classification and putting specific emails into specific folders. And that was a huge godsend for my time, and just not having to read every single email, especially if it's a notification. I think AIs and LLMs, especially if you're running them locally, are great at getting rid of some of the noise. Like Chris was mentioning, they still need a little bit of help when it comes to making decisions and like performing an action, but just summarization and giving you a yes or a no opinion, I think that's where it's really at.
Exactly, 100%. You talk about being able to distill information, being able to expand or enrich information being able to do certain tasks. I mean, those are the things that AI really shines. Making decisions, making declarative or deterministic assessments is very, very tough. Probabilistic suggestions, that's where the sweet spot is right now.
Chris, I am wishing you the best. When you launch the product officially, when it officially comes out of stealth, you're not really a stealthy person. You build in the public, which is one of the things I love about you. But when the product is ready for prime time, bring it on the Hacker Valley Studio show. Let's break it down. Let's review it. And let's share it with the world, because I think that a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of this. Appreciate you. And with that, we will see everyone next time.